Welcome back to episode 2 of the Bonded Banter. Today we'll have a chat about the pressures or the perceived pressures of parents living vicariously through their children, whether it's sport, academically. It's a topic that is close to us, so let's get into it.
Here we are, let's go.
What do you want to kick off with first, pal?
Well, I had a good one here. I think it's a bit outside of the box, but maybe we can start with it, is the pressures of legacy if your parents weren't necessarily, if they were good at sport, and then the pressures that come with that, following through them with sport.
If they were good at on a professional level or semi-professional, whatever it was.
Semi-professional.
And so what are you saying, that the child, that particular child or children would
feel pressure from not necessarily their parents, but just from outside or perceived pressure?
How does it show up for the child?
Well, I mean, I know you've never done it to me for cricket, but like, it just comes with it. You get sledged and stuff like that through you're not as good as your dad.
Well,
I mean, I could argue that
sometimes you probably were, because I ended up being
the back
some
end.
of it was shit.
Feeding first slip and second slip.
No, cover, straight to cover. Cover or mid off, just feed them, no problem. But that was probably something that I needed to harbour in terms of an ego drive. So I should have listened to people a lot in better positions than me.
Yeah.
And at a much younger age. But you learn.
Yeah.
You park the ego.
Yeah.
So what do you reckon that a child will be fearful of failing?
I think so. Like, yeah, definitely, like as a kid coming through the ranks and that sort of stuff. Obviously, as you get older, you deal with it a little bit better. But yeah, as a kid, I know like father sons and like people that I played footy with that have come from like successful football family, like they definitely feel added pressure because of that. There's expectation that they're going to be just as good as their dad or their uncle or their brother. Yeah.
I mean, I don't know what that feels like because I didn't play a sport that my dad was successful with.
Even when you played the league for a bit, you never felt...
No, because I was so much older. I wasn't... when I played rugby league, far out. I mean, I didn't get to play it as a child. He wouldn't let me play rugby league as a child and made a big push at not letting me play that because he didn't want me to experience the same potential riff-raff and... but, you know, totally different times.
Yeah.
But he didn't... Yeah, he said to me that he just didn't want me to be in that environment. He didn't think that environment as a kid was something that, you know, he wanted me to be in. So I didn't. But then if he then took a liking to cricket...
He just brought the...
But then he brought
the
hard-nosed football...
Yeah.
You know, 70s, 80s rugby league mentality, which was just smash every bloke that you saw on the ball, off the ball, whatever. Everything was fair game. So he had that mindset to bring to cricket. It didn't... I wasn't built
as such.
What's that?
Doesn't really translate the same mentality.
I wasn't built like that. I wasn't built... I sort of grew into it a little bit, but... That was not how, but Belinda, she was built like that. So I think she responded to Dad's mentality towards the game.
Yeah.
Being a bit more hard-nosed, where I don't think I really was. So it's hard because, I didn't play. Maybe if I played the sport and stayed in Sydney, in that environment, then there might have been a huge expectation placed on me. But yeah, I don't really know. So, and then you think about the blokes who have been potential father-son draft picks in AFL.
Yeah.
The pressure of those boys that actually do get listed versus the ones that don't.
Yeah.
Like where is there a happy medium? I don't know. Like what?
Yeah, well, I guess those kids that don't end up getting listed, I reckon they'd be so in their head about not being listed, but the outside noise, no one could give like two shits. It's just another kid that didn't make it as such, but I just think the perceived pressure that they'd have on themselves.
But they're dialing that up from such a young age, right? Don't you reckon? I know you sat in one of the Suns Academy sessions where you had some homework and you had to get up in front of the group and do, your favourite times or memories and talk about yourself and like what you enjoy outside of footy and whatnot.
Yeah.
And was there something that you had to talk about, a pressure or something like that you had to do?
I think mainly it was like trials and triumphs and that sort of stuff.
Right.
So it's necessarily.
And I won't ever forget that you said that when Rainsy got up and Rainsy did his talk and he openly spoke about the pressure of being Jeff Rains' son,
yeah,
and being drafted as a father-son. So that obviously sits heavy with Rainsy as a big pressure for him. But yeah, I guess it's more about, so we're talking about somebody like a parent that has been successful, because I'm sure there's a lot of women that have played sport professionally and potentially do it with their daughters too.
Yeah, well, it's going to be a big thing, like mother and daughter prospects and that sort of stuff.
Well, it's funny, isn't it? Because even in the AFL now, it's still a father-daughter, because the sport hasn't evolved yet where women are having their daughters then play that have represented on an AFL level. So it's more about the parents that I think we have to discuss, or should discuss, the parents that didn't actually make the grade, that had the opportunity when they were younger to play professionally, or through circumstances something didn't happen for them.
Yeah.
And then, so they live with regret and then pass that on to their child.
Yeah.
So I know we've spoken about it before, and I'd spoken to my dad about it, because he had, and I can speak about this because I've already cleared the decks about it, and he did everything that he thought was right and with the tools that he had and what he had, and he did it because he cared and he gave a shit about our careers or whatever it might be. So I spoke to him and I asked him the questions of when I was growing up, because he was tainted to be the best country footballer in Sydney, blah, blah, blah. And then tiptoed around, grade footy at Penrith, and then had an opportunity to go to St George and to train on squad to then get on their list.
Yep.
He decided that he didn't want to do that. He wanted to stay with his mates and fumble around Penrith.
Mm-hmm.
He lives with that regret.
Yeah. And
it showed as a child, because we spoke before about having that mentality and pushing your heart as a child, but he had that mentality to want the best for us and push us to a point with his own mentality. But his driving force was the regret of his own failure, I guess. To a certain degree, it might have been a failure, but he lived with that himself. And then he didn't want us to face the same feelings that he
Yeah.
had.
Yeah.
So he made a choice to, push us hard, and give us what he thought was the best opportunity to become successful and forge a career. Now, I know you know this, but things like he put on my bedroom wall on an A4 piece of paper, which was above the end of my bed, like up on the. So, and I saw it every morning, and it was no regrets. Be professional. So every time I woke up in the morning, I saw that.
Yeah.
Now for my dad to do that, for Papa to do that, he thought that was giving me the best chance of switching on every morning, and being in a really good headspace to tick all the boxes that I needed to be to, kick some goals. For me as a kid, it had the adverse effect. I read that every time I read it, I was paralyzed by fear.
Well, you probably question the choices you make because you wonder if you're going to regret it.
Correct. So you're paralyzed by.
You question yourself.
Yeah, you question yourself. You doubt yourself. You doubt the decisions that you were going to make, and it shows up in not just sport. Like, it shows up in your adult life as well. Like, to have that part of your fabric to not live with regret. It sounds great, but having that thought of not living with regret, I felt quite hamstrung that you wouldn't go and test yourself a little bit more. And that's what I said to him. I said, did you live with regret? Because he openly admitted he lives with regret of not doing that, and not testing himself. So it's a real sort of 360 or a 180 that I'd experienced from that, because it didn't serve. I don't believe it served me, because I wasn't built like him.
Yeah.
So that really sort of cut me off at the knees before I began.
Yeah.
Like, and you carry that. So yeah, I don't know. And like, if I did that for you and did that to you, I would pretty well confidently say that you wouldn't have appreciated that either.
I remember when we lived at Mermaid, you wrote something on my mirror. I can't remember what it was.
It was about, we got you to write on your mirror your tasks, your non-negotiables.
Yeah.
And they came from you.
Yeah.
That wasn't, so I can't remember what they were, but they were your non-negotiables that you were going to do daily. I could not for the life of you, because they were yours. So you wrote them on your mirror, that they were going to hold you in good stead.
Yeah.
And they fucking clearly worked. So they worked well. So you're flying along. But do you think if I had have done that for you and put that pressure, so you saw that, I don't think you would have responded to that in the way that my dad, your grandfather, wanted it to be, because he only had my best interests at heart, and he did it because he cared.
Yeah.
And he wanted the best for me.
Yeah.
And then he would sit there, and he has said that he used to get the shits a lot, and how he showed up with his aggression and his anger was because he didn't believe that I was living up to my true potential. So then he would crack the shits because he thought I was taking the piss.
Yeah.
And I said to him, it is definitely 100%, and this goes for all parts of not just sport, it's in life too, that so much of it's a mental game. Yeah. It's not, a lot of people have the same skill set, but it's how you show up mentally with your mental toughness and your resilience to be there. There's a real mental maturity, I think, around becoming that person. And I'm sure you could probably learn to have it, but the difference between being at that level and then that level, purely comes down to your mental state, and how you can show up and how you can absorb the pressure and not let it get to you.
Yeah. Well, I mean, if you write something else on the whiteboard, it's probably a different story, but it also comes from the way that he's telling you as well. Like if he's like, come on, mate, no fucking regrets. Like, what the fuck are you doing? You're going to question yourself. But if he's like, I just want you to make this decision and stick with that.
And back yourself.
Yeah. Then it's a different story, I reckon, because it's coming from a place of maybe nurturing. Well, he's nurturing you anyway, but it seems a lot more nurturing if he comes across that way.
And yes, but you can't lose sight, and I can't lose sight of the fact that he did it because he gave a shit.
It just doesn't
like
feel
he
like
was
that,
so invested in Belinda and I, like beyond.
And Spud had a good cricketing career as well.
Yeah, he did. Big bouncy outswingers, swinging them down there. So, I just think that that's probably something that, we had a really good chat about in terms of it. So, did it have a positive impact on me? No. Did he do it because that's what he thought was best with the tools that he had? 100%.
Yeah.
But that man was so committed to us.
Yeah.
So committed to us training, off season, like all of those things, because he saw that there was potential, I guess, and then he just invested all of that. If you spoke to the other 4 siblings, they would be so dark about the lack of attention or their needs not being met because we stole it away.
Yeah.
And then he would sit there now and go, well, bit of a waste of time because it never came to fruition. But, I mean, Annie Bindi, she obviously played professionally, but then he had the shits of the choices that she sort of made around not continuing her career because she drew a line in the sand and made a stance against the politics of that sort of cricket board or whatever you might call it. So,
which is good. There's politics in every sport, and it gets away with a lot.
There is, and then you can talk about the politics in kids sort of sport growing up. Like there's that saying, it's who you know, not what you know, and that's really true to a certain degree, I think.
Yeah. Oh well, especially like if you're good when you're 14, 15, that holds you in good stead for the next 4 years. You could just be a gun when you're that old, 14, 15, and then you end up in the system for another 4 or 5 years. Because
well, and then you just get delisted, or you don't live up to what.
But that's depriving the kids that have the potential when they're peaking at 18 and 19 and like 17.
Yeah, so then it's interesting because if you are getting picked up or drafted, if we're talking about AFL at 18 or whatever it might be, your career's not lost with the mid-season drafts now. It just means that you have to go the long way, and it's probably far more rewarding if you do get picked up because then you're ready to go.
Yeah.
You're probably more a ready-made footballer with a lot more toughness and resilience, and you appreciate it. You'd be so much more grateful for the opportunity than you might have been when you got picked up.
You're probably going to work a bit harder once you get there as well because you know the amount of hours you put into getting there. Rather you get picked up as like an immature 18, 19-year-old. That's might be all you know is I was going to get drafted.
Yeah, Probably. But how do you think? So, give me. I know that I've been that young child experiencing all of that, and I was so mindful to not try and place those pressures and that burden on you and pass it down the line. The amount of times that I caught myself from, doing that or taking over from, the decisions that you had made or could make, would you been aware of that? Or because I think that I was pretty good and mindful enough. I'm sure it probably happened a few times, but give me your take.
Yeah, well, I think there's definitely a fine line between like trying to instill on your kids to be determined, but then if you go too far the other way, it's just ends up like your childhood and your dad's just hounding you 24/7 to don't be shit. So I reckon you covered that line pretty well. Definitely times where you'd grill me, but I'm sure they were warranted.
Yeah, but so grilled you because of decisions you made on the field or off the field, or because
I don't like
tell me, because I'd love to hear it.
I don't think you've ever grilled me for decisions I've made on the field. Maybe never from a work rate point of view. I don't reckon. It's always been pretty good. And then I find myself now, when you try and tell me to do something with footy, and this isn't a dig, but I think
dig away.
All right, I'll get my shovel. I think I know footy better than you now.
For sure.
So when you try and tell me to do something on the footy field, I'm like, well, I didn't do that because of this.
Do you think that I would still tell you something or ask the questions? Or I feel like I'm just saying, you tell me, I feel like I would more ask the question on why didn't that happen in that scenario more so than telling you, because I'm fully aware of your IQ around that than me, but I'm off the field. Watching it all unfold, but I'm not gassed. I'm not fatigued. So I'm not the one, under physical duress trying to make a decision. I can see it unfold clearly because I'm not physically exhausted. Yeah. So do you think I have still told you what to do or asked the question of you, why didn't that happen?
Oh, well, I mean, there's been times where you would have told me something. I think maybe while I was younger.
And then you just, in your head, just going, shut up, old man.
Yeah, well.
Fair enough.
Yeah.
If you don't agree with it.
No, yes, I would never say that to you, but when I was younger, I'd probably listen to you a bit more because I didn't know footy as well. But now I might just nod and agree. Now every time I nod and agree when you're talking,
thing to do.
when I'm talking footy and I nod and agree, you're going to know that I'm not agreeing with you. Nah, but
I just won't fucking talk to you.
Yeah, I think. No, I reckon most of the time it's a question, but there are some times when it's a rhetorical question.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. But so have you got friends, or have you got, personal experiences more around trying to align with those parents of putting pressure on?
Oh, I think.
What does it do? I know what it did to me.
Yeah.
But what do you think it would do to you and to anyone else you might know?
Yeah, well, I've never really surrounded myself with people with parents like that, so it's kind of hard to tell. But I mean, it's just going to add added pressure to a kid that's probably, if we're talking AFL terms, trying to come through the ranks and already is putting enough pressure on themselves, try and make that cut make that team. And then if they have their parent, which should be someone they can confide in and come to if they need a chat, but they might feel like they're just going to get grilled and be like, "Well, you shouldn't feel like that. Why are you feeling like that?"
Yeah, and they're not getting the support when they go home.
Yeah.
And it's that story of little Johnny coming home all upset, and his parents are like, "What's the matter, Johnny?" And he said, "I didn't make the soccer team." And his parents go, "That's okay, Johnny. You didn't like soccer anyway."
Mm.
Like telling Johnny that's all right. Don't worry about it. Let's just sweep it under the rug because you didn't like soccer anyway. Johnny loves soccer.
Yeah.
So, but his parents didn't have the awareness to give him, some tools or the support to maybe get back on the bike and understand it. Do you think that we'll speak about resilience in younger kids now? And it might have been like that. Maybe I was just young, and it just seems to me that resilience has been lost a little bit in the younger generation. Like it's easy now to just pack up and move on, or if things get too hard, take your bat and ball and go home.
Yeah, well, I mean, I reckon that the door for being as resilient as possible and not being resilient is bigger than it was 20, 30 years ago. So now I reckon the people and kids and people my age that are resilient, I reckon they're more resilient than what people used to be. But then there's a really low bar for people that aren't as resilient as well.
Well, you saying the gap's wider?
The gap's wider, I reckon.
Between kids that are resilient and aren't?
Because I reckon there's kids that are just and people that are built different and are just like, well, I didn't get that. Okay, I'm going to go harder next time.
Why are they built different? Why? Let's use you for an example, because you have the ultimate resilience that, for a kid, when you're 16, you have your shoulder injury, you don't. And I remember sitting up there in the surgeon's office when you had no nerve fire and your shoulder dwindled away, and he says, "I've never seen an athlete come back from this surgery ever before to play footy again." You were upset, and it was really crushing to sit there as your parent in that. And I don't know if you remember it, but we walked out of the hospital and we walked across the road, and as we were walking across the crossing, you said, "Who the fuck is he? Sort of, what does he know?"
Mm.
I don't care what he said. That's, he's only the best surgeon in Australia and the world maybe at doing that job. But you were like, no. He is not going to make me not play footy again. So that is in you.
Yeah.
That's built in you. Why is it built in you and not others?
Well, I think definitely an upbringing side of things. Like if we can go back to the way that you were brought up, Papa's brought you up as maybe an angry resilience. Like, do you just get angry and then you find the solution? I reckon you brought me up. There's that fine line between being determined and domination where you just push them into something. I reckon you brought me up to be like, there's a problem, I'll fix it. And maybe more of a logical
being
side
conscious, like having a consciousness around.
Instead of just being angry about it and then doing something about it because you're not coming at it from the right mindset.
Like actually sitting back and evaluating the situation.
Yeah. Like obviously I was pissed when I got that news, but there's also the controllable.
You dusted yourself off within 10 minutes or 15 minutes.
Yeah, well, I mean, if there's nothing to lose there, like my shoulder's fucked. So I'm either going to put a lot of time and effort into getting back to footy, or it's going to be the same result, whether I do go back and play with no rehab or try my hardest, do heaps of rehab, get my shoulder back right.
But in your mind, so you're 16, I think you were.
Mm.
In your mind, something ticked for you to go, I'm going to play footy again. Irrespective of a professional surgeon saying that it's almost impossible.
Yeah, well, I think...
Is it because of your age and you were just young and defiant?
Maybe.
Like if he says that to you when you're 21, 22, like if he said that to you now, would you still have the same mindset?
I reckon.
Yeah.
Yeah, well, like so whether I had have given up footy and not played again, or if I get back to footy and fuck my shoulder again, I'd still end up not playing footy, if that makes sense. Like, it's still going to be the same result whether I put a lot of time and effort into it and end up hurting my shoulder again and then footy's done. And then if I had gone the other road and be like, okay, you're right, no footy, I'm still going to end up not playing footy.
But you're not thinking about that, are you? Will you think about that?
Yeah, well...
You would be thinking about that now in hindsight, or you were
processing
that?
Processing that then.
Yeah, right. Society, I feel, has allowed us to be a lot weaker.
Oh, soft, for sure.
Like weak as piss.
Yeah. Yeah, I just think, upbringing's a big thing. I've just been hungry.
Such a double-edged sword, though, isn't it? Because the way I grew up was quite, this is what you're doing. I don't care if whether it was training or whatever, I don't care if you are throwing up, you're bleeding, both of your legs are broken, you're getting to the finish line. You just got to find a way to get to the finish line. Where now, I'm being very general, but if a child fell over and grazed their knee, they're not getting the finish line.
No, you get participation award.
Oh, don't start me on all that. Like that, yeah. But maybe some kids of this generation are actually still showing a level of resilience and would do that. That's something that comes from the parent. Hey.
Yeah, it's just down to being hungry. I think, and then like after doing my shoulder, the next big injury was breaking my jaw.
But let's stay on your shoulder for a second. So you have your shoulder surgery, and this surgery was developed by an Indian doctor. Do you remember why and how? So, you would have been probably just off with just worrying about getting back to playing footy.
Probably.
So the surgery was done because they had a lot of moped accidents in India. And when people were falling off mopeds, they were doing their shoulders, they were ripping their shoulders apart, and then they'd have nerve issues. So it started because he would move the nerve graft, he would move a nerve from the tricep to their shoulder in order to give them some nerve fire and function again. So then they could have nerve sending messages to their muscles to fire their muscles, so then they could potentially build them and find power again. And essentially that's what, happened to you. So, but do you remember him saying that mechanically you need to be focused on, when you're training, focused on your deltoid. So you
mind
can set
to muscle.
Yeah, your mind and muscle, because you need to focus, and you're now training one of your tricep nerves to your deltoid.
Yeah.
It's insane.
Yeah.
But you proved him wrong, because you had a year off and you worked your bloody bum off to do it.
9 months, actually.
Was it?
It was supposed to be, 12 to 16 month recovery or something.
And you ripped in and you got it done. And then what was your first game back?
Up in Maroochydore for school.
Oh, for school, for PBC.
It's
and there's a little redemption thing too, hey? Like, you got to go back after the year before, getting beaten after the siren.
Yeah, and then missing it, hitting the post.
Yeah, well,
5 minutes
but you
ago.
got redemption, and I feel like what goes around, you're always going to get your opportunity of redemption
Oh yeah,
in life, whatever. You are
just
always going to
happens,
have an opportunity to have the success story. You got to take it, and then, however, those opportunities will always come around.
Yeah,
hands down. So then you get back on the park, you're playing footy again, shoulder strap. You still got to work hard to maintain some level of health in your shoulder, and then playing Suns Academy, VFL, like you're getting a crack at VFL footy, and then VFL have a bye, and you go back and play at Surface and break your jaw.
well, I think it was, VFL had a bye, and then played Surface, and then went up to North Queensland to see Mum that week, and then Surface dropped me to the twos because I didn't go to training, and then I went to Maroochydore and played twos, and then broke my jaw.
In the Magoos, cop
Magoos,
that.
Yeah.
There's a life lesson too.
Don't play twos. It's not a
Don't
choice.
go and see your mum.
Yeah.
No. But I mean, you're always going to see your mum, but that's the other side of things, that it is, that's you to a T. Like you've got a family first mentality.
I still thought I was stiff to get dropped after I was best on the week before. One of. Even though we got done by probably 120, but
if you're a backman and you're getting done by 120 points, you probably should be you're seeing a lot of footy.
Yeah, but you also got done by 20 goals, so you probably shouldn't be in the best.
Well, no one else could be. They probably shouldn't have had any.
Yeah.
And bust your jaw up really badly. So that season ending, it's a real turning point for you as a person, I reckon.
Yeah, well, I think,
I might maybe touch on that in the next episode.
Yeah.
We'll talk about, because I feel like that's going to be important to have a chat about that in the next episode, on what that did for you and to you.
Yeah.
Mentally, from a mental health point of view. So
yeah.
Do you reckon we'll just...
Yeah.
I think that, because that's a really important one to cover off there. So
story for another day.
we talk about, we've spoken about, your injury, your shoulder being, having these aspirations to play high level footy, and then your jaw gets broken when you were starting to build some sort of momentum to that. When you sit, and we as parents sit in the Suns Academy info sessions, one of the slides, and the Suns coaches or whoever it is, they talk about you as young athletes having a plan B. And what's your plan B? Because out of 100 kids sitting in the room or whatever it is, one or two of you at best might get picked up. So I'm sitting there as a parent going, this is how I tick, that I'm sitting there thinking, well, there isn't a plan B.
Should be all in.
For Connor or any of these boys, if you are thinking about a plan B in that environment and you're not all in, are you really buying into the cause? If you are not going flat out and throwing everything at it, because the way I thought about it was, if you have a plan B, is that taking away some crucial energy or commitment to the cause?
Yeah.
What firstly, did you ever even listen to it? Because I reckon that probably no kid in there would have actually paid attention to any of it.
One ear out the other. That's definitely a parent's evening, I reckon.
Do you reckon that was directed at the parents to foster that? Because they speak about family first, school. What family, school,
No, wasn't
and
it
footy?
school, family, footy, friends?
I don't. It was your gig.
I know it was footy and
I
friends
probably
were the
tuned out
last
then
two.
too. But to have that and the real focus on the plan B.
Yeah, I mean,
Talk to me about that.
well, you can see both sides though, because they are being realists in that moment, saying that one or two of you might get picked up out of the 100 here that are just in your age group, and then there's the other point of view, like all cards on the table. If you got a plan B, it's like having two sets. Yeah, but I think there's a lot more. Like, you learn so much more like going through those programs than just footy. Like, there's so much more to it, and you learn so much more than just learning about football. Like, there's so many habits and that resilience aspect that you learn from that sort of stuff. Like, witty, anyone runs it or goes over the line or pulls up short, you got to go again
With your team.
Yeah, you're not
Like,
done.
not just
You're
you.
not done until I blow that whistle. Like, he'd never tell you how many are left.
Yeah.
And if you ask, you start again.
Yeah, and it's
Just a
huge
fucking
because
devil.
you carry them for life.
Yeah, which is like, yeah, I think that's a big part of resilience now. Like, why, that the mindset you have.
That's because Wayne Bennett was always really strong on when they were doing their running, that you finish a meter past the line. That's when you finish. That's when you're pulling up.
Yeah.
You're focusing. There's the line, but you stop a meter after the line.
Yeah.
Like that, that just carries so much weight in your mindset.
Yeah. Well, I mean, it just also adds up. Like, you're putting in more work than other people as well. You do that 1 meter 10 times at 10 meters, 10 sessions is 100 meters more.
Yeah. But when you're being told that as, thinking about your plan B, and Mum and I had a conversation about it, probably not long after that actually happened, and Mum was of the opinion that, you can't throw all your eggs in one basket because you never know what's going to happen. And I sat there and questioned that to say, well, exactly that. If you don't throw all your eggs in one basket, are you really committing wholly and 100% to having a red hot crack at it?
Yeah. Well, I mean, like, that, I guess it's just a different mindset. Like, you're probably coming at it from more of a sporting mindset. Mum's coming at it from a life point of view. But then, like, when you get to your 18th year anyway, I was labouring on the tools from 6:30 to 3:30, then going to training.
Yeah, absolutely buckled. But what's your thoughts around, if you're not wholly and solely focused on it, is there merit in having a plan B?
Well, it depends how much effort you're putting into your plan B. If your plan B is going to uni, then you just do the 5 hours at school.
But where's your trade-off? Like, what does your effort look like? So if you've got plan A and plan B, what gets more energy? If it's 50-50, I'm not sure that I'm not sure that you know exactly what you want.
Yeah, well,
if it's 80-20, maybe you are leaning to that 80%. But there's still that 20 that sort of hovers there. I don't know, does it sow a seed of doubt that maybe I'm not all in on that plan A?
Yeah. Yeah, I think so. And especially, like, you don't know the amount of people that have done the career that they've set to do when they come out of school, and that would have been their plan B at 16.
Mm-hmm.
It'd be like 1 or 2%.
Well, inherently you're going to change careers multiple times throughout your life.
Yeah. Well, what did you want to do when you come out of school?
Well, I always wanted to be in construction when I was at school.
Yeah.
I came out of that, and that's what I did until you realise that it's a pretty tough gig.
Yeah.
And then I went into corporate sort of office stuff.
Yeah.
And then I sort of studied like late to get off the tools.
You wanted a PE teacher as
exercise science and
exercise
stuff like
science.
that, and then like biomechanics, which I loved, all that sort of stuff. And then, you go and do business, studies and all those sort of things. So totally different to what I wanted to, that I ever thought I wanted to do.
Yeah, I think it definitely like sows a seed of doubt, and you're not going all in. It only makes sense like if you're 80% of effort into your plan A, but 20% into your plan B. There's 20% of effort that you could be putting into your plan A.
So tell me, where does that sit with you when you heard plan B? And we've spoken about your ability of resilience earlier. What does that plan B, when you hear what's your plan B, and we're not talking about the ad where you're going to drive home, you're not driving home drunk, because that's important, that plan B.
That is important.
Do not drive drunk.
Drink responsibly.
What's your plan B? What did you think of and when you heard?
Yeah. Well, I mean, when I hear that as a 16-year-old, you don't give it any belly. I probably didn't give it any thought, to be honest, because you're just so focused on football at that point in time.
And did you ever have a chat with mum about a plan B? Did mum ever speak to you about saying, hey, Dale, what do you want to do if footy doesn't work out?
Oh, it wasn't really if footy doesn't work out. It was what do you want to do when you leave school? Or like career-wise, what do you want to do?
Yeah.
And that's a question, like the obvious answer was footy, but then like, what do you want to do if that doesn't happen?
Mm-hmm.
But you wouldn't say it like that.
You wouldn't answer it like that? Or
No, yeah, I wouldn't say footy. I'd say like, oh, maybe whatever it might be, I think.
But does it strike something in you to say, I don't have a plan B? This is it. So there's that, and then if or when footy didn't happen or doesn't happen for you, it's a real that's a real challenge for young people to have to deal with, right? That the reality of, so this is the catch-22. If they had a plan B, then they're probably okay.
Yeah, better off.
You're a bit better off because you have your plan B to fall back on. So I don't know where it sits. Like, it's a real tricky one.
Yeah, well, I think the only way you go all in on your plan A is if you're given like 120% or 110%.
But then that comes through, and you need support for that.
Yeah.
But it's got to be a real well thought about, designed focus and being unwavering.
Yeah.
Hasn't it? Like, that's very much, but there comes a lot of pain, sacrifice with any success. Like, so many people say, oh, that you made that look easy or whatever it might be to a professional athlete. They don't talk about all the sessions that they do and all of the things that they do behind the scenes to make it look like that. I don't reckon they had a plan B.
Mm-hmm.
I reckon that's exactly what they're doing. It's like in life or career or your business or whatever you might want to do. If you want to go all in and make it successful, then that's all that's going to happen.
Yeah.
I don't. You can be working on a new business while you're still doing something else, but you still doing something else, I'm sure, is taking away your focus and energy from going all in on the other.
Yeah.
Don't you reckon?
Yeah, well, I saw something the other day and it was saying like if you had your plan A and then you had a backup as your plan B, it's like if you go all in on your plan A, what's the worst that can happen? You just end up doing the same thing you're doing now.
Yeah.
Yeah, so what the worst case
But have
is...
a crack.
The worst case is just end up in the same spot. You're not necessarily losing anything.
Yeah, like put your big boy pants on and have a crack.
Yeah. I think it's different in the sense, like you and I could use that mindset now because like we have a backup option, whereas like if you're a kid coming through, you don't have a backup option as such. It's like you're trying to figure out what that backup option would be. And I feel like that's what they're talking about when they say a plan B.
Yep. Yeah, that's true.
So you can go all in on that plan A being football, but then the worst case is football doesn't work out, then what?
Yeah. But how do you process that?
Yeah, well, probably not like that as a 16-year-old.
No.
I don't think you process it at all. You just think it out.
No, but then you get to 18 where the expectation comes of forging your careers, whether it is football or whatever, if it's uni or your apprenticeships or whatever it might be.
Yeah.
Then, yeah, it's a real tough one. Yeah. But I saw a quote and it was, the secret of success is learning how to use pain and pleasure instead of pain and pleasure using you. So just being able to shift your focus and work on that. Is there anything else that you think that we want to cover off?
With our run sheet
in this, because it's pretty. I've really enjoyed actually having a chat about your mentality around it.
Yeah, a quick one is parents taking on roles as a coach in their kids' team. Because then it adds another facet to that pressure on their kid, because you're not only putting pressure on them or maybe putting pressure on them as your child, and then if that coach is actually invested in their team, they're putting pressure on their kid to perform for the team as well, not just for themselves. So I know you never really coached any of my teams growing up.
No, I made a conscious effort not really to, because I knew me.
Yeah. Too invested.
Well, it's like, it's like, Papa, you just want your kids to do well. And like across. I was happy to run water or be a runner or do assistant stuff, but you didn't need me to be there like that. And I didn't want to be there like that because, I would always help out, but it was probably, I had the thought process that you're better off with other coaches because you're going to learn. You're sick of hearing from me.
Yeah. And
you said before that you didn't even think that you'll know that I know what I'm talking about. So, so you definitely would have heard it from me. So,
there's a twos coaching gig at Surface at the moment if you're interested.
Busy. What do you think about that? Do you think that there is an added pressure on the child because the parent coaches aside? And is there an ulterior motive of that parent to make sure that their child gets the best opportunities?
Yeah, well, I think there's a couple sides to it, because then there's also the side coming from if there was a kid that their parent was coaching and maybe they weren't that great at the sport, that parent might have favourites in that team, and if that favourite isn't their own kid because they're not that good at that sport, then that kid might feel a bit like left out.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Mm.
So then there might be a jealousy aspect or a bit of a burden side of things as well for that kid.
I'm going to throw something out there. Do you think that commonly most of the parents that coach their child's side, that child is generally one of the better players?
Oh, yeah, 100%.
So therefore, there's an invested interest from that parent.
Yeah.
I don't think I couldn't, and anybody could probably prove me wrong, I'm sure. I couldn't really think of any time that a parent who has been a coach, their child hasn't been one of the best players.
Yeah.
And it would be testament, and you'd tip your hat to a parent who was coaching a side where their child wasn't one of the best players. That's, that's pretty cool.
Yeah. Well, I've coached by Tim and Uncle Ben through soccer. I think I was one of the better ones. And then with footy, it was Mark. And then
But then you have Bodie, right? So
but Mark didn't even need to worry about Bodie.
But then, like Mark's coaching your footy side, but his son's now playing AFL footy, and then his other sons will probably play AFL footy too.
Yeah, they're probably better than Bodie, to be honest.
Oh dear. I saw him on the weekend actually walking along Burley. So, there would be an added pressure associated with that. But
yeah. And then they're also like, as you get a little bit older, and if that parent's still coaching that team, like sport is an outlet for a lot of people. But then if their parent is thinking about that footy stuff at home or thinking about that sports stuff at home, then you're getting hounded maybe about sport at home from your own parent. Maybe you just don't want to talk about it for a bit. You just want to leave footy at footy.
Yeah, but they're all the associated pressures of that, aren't they? Of having your parent as a coach, or even if they don't coach, not being able to disconnect from the game.
Yeah.
Anyway, quite interesting. Anything else you want to cover off before we finish up?
No, that's it.
Rightio. Thanks for listening to episode 2.
Good app. Thanks, guys. Like and subscribe.